Good morning, everyone. I would like to call to order the Marketing, Service Planning, and Business Development Committee meeting of the North County Transit San Diego Railroad for October 28, 2025. Before we begin, I would like to inform members of the public who may be viewing the meeting on the district's YouTube page that in order to make public comment during the meeting, you must connect to the meeting by using the Zoom link provided on the agenda. You must also register with the clerk by sending an email to clerk@nctd.org with the name or phone number and which item you would like to speak on. Now I'd like to ask our Deputy Clerk, Taylor Seawee, to call roll, please.
Board Member Martinez,
Here.
Board Member Garcia, Board Member O'Hara,
Here.
Board Member Joyce.
Present.
This completes the roll. Board Member Garcia absent.
Thank you, Taylor. Now will you provide a safety brief and review the evacuation procedures?
Yes. In case of an emergency, I will dial 911. In case of an evacuation, please take the stairs. Do not use the elevators. Once cleared of the building, do not re-enter unless cleared to do so by emergency personnel. There are fire extinguishers and first aid kits on each floor of the building. There is a portable defibrillator on the first floor and staff on hand trained on CPR procedures if needed. This concludes my safety brief.
Thank you, Taylor. Do we have any general public comments today?
No, we do not.
Okay, thank you. Before we get into specific items on the agenda for this meeting, I would like to outline the meeting protocols to make this meeting as efficient as possible. First, please hold your comments and/or questions until after the agenda item has been presented. Second, when the time comes for the board members' comments or questions, please raise your hand and I will call on you in the order they were raised. The first item on the agenda, item number 1 today, is an update on the status of safety and security on NCTD's modes and facilities. Karen Chukolsky, thank you, Senior Legal Counsel, Regulatory Compliance, and Chris Carrillo, Director of Security, will present this item. Karen and Chris, you have our attention. Thank you very much.
Good morning. I'm going to go ahead and start things off with an update on our safety program. So just want to share a little bit of background on the Safety and Risk Management Department staffing. As you all may be aware already, safety and risk management functions do report into Lori Winfrey, our Deputy CEO and Chief General Counsel, who also serves as NCTD's Safety Management System Executive in accordance with FTA requirements. On the legal and risk management side, we have our Deputy General Counsel, our Enterprise Risk Manager, and myself, Senior Regulatory Compliance. On the safety team, we have 3 specialists, one for bus, one for rail, and a field specialist who primarily covers facilities and a lot of our construction projects that are out along the right-of-way. We have a management analyst who is overseeing our safety internal audit program and a safety trainer who also provides program support. In terms of the overall program responsibilities, obviously, on both teams, we are heavily focused on regulatory compliance and oversight with all of our different agencies. And you see the alphabet soup up here. Those are the primary ones, though there certainly are more as well. I do want to call out our safety team who spends a lot of time out in the field working very closely with our folks in operations, with facilities, with DSD, and overseeing the construction projects, really making sure that they are having that one-to-one firsthand contact where you really can make the most difference in making sure that we're in compliance with the safety requirements. We also do spend a fair amount of effort making sure that we are working collaboratively with operations for any of the required manuals and plans. The FRA and the FTA both have their fair share of requirements. I know from time to time we bring a few of them forward to you all at the board for approval. That's just a small subset of them. But the documentation is also a very important part of what we do for program compliance. We are also responsible for reporting National Transit Database safety and security incidents. That is the responsibility of our safety trainer. The NTD has various requirements for different types of incidents that rise to certain levels and thresholds, and we do have to report those in within a specified time period after they occur. So it's another reason that making sure that having that close contact with folks out in the field, is important, not only preventing, but in cases where we do have any incidents, they're very quickly informed and we're making sure we're getting all the right information up to the NTD. As far as our internal safety audits, those are also a very important component of our safety oversight program. Our management analyst, as you can see here, does 45 audits over a 36-month period. Some of these audits are actually required as part of our program from the CPUC. They do require that you do certain internal audits, but we go above and beyond that, and we are very focused on making sure that we're applying things neutrally across all the modes, not just rail, which the CPUC oversees. That way, we're always being certain that we are in the best proactive status, so that if we do have any sort of inspections come up, we're probably already ahead of the game at making sure that we're in compliance and that we may have caught and or corrected any potential opportunities for improvement out in the operations. And of course, safety training, extremely important. Want to make sure that from day one we are providing all our employees with the information they need to be safe in their jobs, not only in compliance with regulations, but just general best safety practices. We do also provide training to some contractors as well. Those are really more related to individuals who are going to be working out along the right of way, because as we know, that's a very dangerous area and does have special needs that not only we need to comply with, but again, just generally people need to be aware of to make sure that they are conducting themselves in the safest manner possible. So I want to talk a little bit about our data, and this is comparative data from calendar year 2024 as compared to calendar year 2025 year to date. So this is the San Diego subdivision where we have Coaster, Amtrak, BNSF, and Metrolink operating. And I'm going to go through some statistics and just want to brief over some terms. So when we say trespasser, we are talking about an individual and or a vehicle who's on our railroad right-of-way. When we say near miss, we're talking about any incident that requires the train operator to take some sort of proactive action to avoid or mitigate contact with a trespasser. So typically that's going to be either applying normal braking or applying emergency braking. Those are the two typical responses that someone would have to initiate. And then trespasser strike, unfortunately, I think we all know what that is. That is anytime the train makes contact with an individual or a vehicle. So as you look at our data here on the San Diego subdivision, you can see as far as trespasser incidences, and these are basically the incidences that are reported by trains and or other personnel working out along the right-of-way. So a train may be on its run and it passes a particular spot along the right-of-way and it sees some people trespassing. It will call that in, the engineer, sorry, not it. They will call that in to our operations control center, and that's how we track a lot of this data. Or it could be people working out on the right of way, on maintenance of way. They see trespassers and report them in. Yes.
Are these, because we're not through 2025, is this up until now?
Yes.
Okay,
This is
so,
current as of I would say end of last week when we pulled this data together.
all right, but the 24 numbers are all of 24?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, January through December. Yes. Yeah. So as you can see, we're tracking slightly, with my marginal math skills, slightly lower on trespasser incidences and near misses kind of year to date than we were in 2024. So hopefully during the last 2 months of the year that will continue and we will end up finishing our year a little bit lower. As far as trespasser strikes on San Diego, those who were on our board last year probably recall that was a very difficult year for all of us and all of our carriers. We had 32 trespasser incidences on the San Diego subdivision alone. And this year, fortunately, we've only had 11. Obviously, we'd like it to always be 0, but definitely glad to see that those numbers are tracking well below. So just thought it would be helpful to provide a little bit of extra context to you all on the trespasser incident data. So during calendar year 2024, Of the 32 incidences, 14 were Amtrak, 15 were Coaster, and 3 were BNSF. Out of all of those incidents together, we had 23 fatal incidents. This year, year to date, Amtrak has 4 incidents and Coaster has 6 and Metrolink has 1. We have 9 fatalities so far year to date. So that's just a little bit of context on that data that I thought might be helpful to you all. As far as our Escondido subdivision, we have our Sprinter running during our daylight hours, and then BNSF does run at night. But the incidences that you see here are primarily, if not almost the majority, all related to Sprinter reported incidences. So again, we have our same definitions, and you can see that our trespassing incidences are about 100 behind year to date. So again, we're hoping those will, continue to stay on a lower trend this year. Near misses, we're probably kind of running even. I would say we had 53 last year and we're at 50 this year. On the trespasser incidences themselves, you'll see we had 3 last year and 6 this year. So again, I did want to provide a little context on that. So last year we had 2 fatalities and 1 non-fatal incident on Sprinter, and these were all Sprinter. This year we have 3 fatalities. Of those 6 incidences, 3 are actually vehicle strikes, one of which unfortunately was the fatality with an individual inside. One of the things that I will say we are seeing slightly more this year as it relates to the near misses and the trespasser incidences is individuals and vehicles kind of trying to run the crossing and then kind of getting trapped by the gate on the other side, or they're insisting on, I'm going to get through and I'm going to get to that traffic light on the other side, and there's several cars in front of them, and the cars in front of them get stopped by the gate, and then the back end of their car, for example, may be hanging over our tracks because obviously there's nowhere for them to go. And so that does account, unfortunately, for what seems to be a little bit of the higher trend. We are actually working closely with the CPUC and looking at the intersections where we seem to see more of these incidences occurring, and trying to work as well with the cities on looking at things just like, let's keep the markings a little, as clear as we can, make sure that they're painted clearly, or maybe put improved markings in. We're also talking with some of the cities about putting in some queue cutters to help make sure that as cars are having to cross through these, our tracks and getting through to, to turn signals and those types of things, that we're having a little bit, better path and making sure that that clears out. So those are some things that we are working on, really trying to look at some of these areas where we're having the most incidences. Overall, I also want to say that as far as general communication and education, the safety team and CTD as a whole, I think, has worked very hard on education out to the community, really trying to stress the importance of safety around the tracks, and that includes not just, pedestrians walking, but also individuals driving. So we have really pushed forward a good outreach communication program, and I'll talk a little bit more about that on the next slide. And then the other thing I do want to call out as well is the work of my colleague's security department. So their team has been doing great work, and I know Chris has some really good information in the next portion of the presentation, so I will not steal her thunder, and I'll let her share a little bit more with you about what her team's doing to really help us make an impact in this area. So I want to talk a little bit about the safety initiatives. Earlier this year, we had our realignment of our safety and risk management staffing, and reviewed it a little bit earlier in the presentation. And what I really want to call out about this is that under the current model, our safety specialists report into Lori, but they are embedded within the operations function. So day to day, they are out there side by side with our teams in bus, with rail, facilities, DSD, wherever it is, and that gives them that one-to-one linkage and communication. So that really does help build and foster a much stronger and more proactive safety culture here within NCTD. We've gotten really great feedback from the individuals in operations, how nice it is. They can just kind of go down the hall and grab someone in safety and, ask them a question and, hey, can you go out in the field and look at this with me? Or, hey, I have a question on this. So it's been really, really positive, and we've gotten good feedback throughout the organization on that effort. So kudos to Lori for, leading that charge for us. Rail Safety Month in September, as you probably all recall, we do recognize Rail Safety Month every year. We did a lot of activities, significant outreach. We were at many stations on both Coaster and Sprinter, and we also did a nice outreach event down at Old Town Station with MTS. Took a nice picture up there, and really showing again that this is a regional effort to promote rail safety all year round. So working as well with our folks in marketing and communications, we do continue to have a lot of different outreach campaigns throughout the whole calendar year. Rail safety is not just a one-time activity. So we do a lot of different activities throughout the calendar year, but we do kind of ramp it up a little in September to really recognize Rail Safety Month. Operation Lifesaver is a critical partner for us in a lot of these efforts. They do support a lot of our outreach, and they have a lot of great tools and resources that we take advantage of. We do have a handful of our employees who are certified as Operation Lifesaver presenters/trainers, and they do spend a fair amount of their time going out into schools and doing education to our youth, catching them, early on, even in the early phases of elementary school, really impressing upon them the importance of safety around the tracks. So we have schools that will reach out to us from time to time, and then we also have other schools we'll reach out to proactively as well, particularly looking at ones that are close to, some of our rail stations, where you might have, more likelihood of, the children and the youth being around the tracks. So really a great program. And again, I've gotten some great feedback from all the schools we've participated in with that. We also have a hazard reporting QR code, which allows individuals anywhere within NCTD to click on that code, and they can report any sort of safety hazard. It can be anonymous or not anonymous in their choice, but it goes through our document management system, and it immediately comes to everybody in safety, and then quickly review it, and then we assign it out to figure out what we need to do to assess it and take any sort of necessary remediative action. We do closely link with our safety committees on this as well. They're also very involved in tracking these hazards. We're ramping up some defensive driving training. We have all of our modes in-house right now, and I think as we all know, particularly out on the roads, you can never be too safe and too defensive of a driver with all the activities going out here on the streets in California. So we are really working on ramping up the defensive driving training. And while we think of it as being on the roads, we are also looking at doing this for our train operators and engineers, because there are still kind of defensive driving techniques that as a train operator engineer you actually still need to employ. So we're making sure that we cover off all of those elements. And then another big initiative is our Human Trafficking Prevention Task Force. I know we've come to the board before with some information on this very serious crime. As we've shared before, San Diego is one of the top regions in the country due to our proximity to international borders, as well as the amount of money in Southern California that makes it attractive. So working with our Director of Rail Operations, Patrick Cola, who has extensive experience in this back at Metra, he's brought in collaboration with an organization called Reclaim 13, and we're really looking at ramping up a large task force and bringing in other transit agencies in Southern California. So it wouldn't just be, a standalone effort. We're looking at reaching out into Los Angeles, Riverside, San Bernardino areas, really emphasizing training to our employees so that they can recognize potential indicators of somebody who's being trafficked and understand what to do about it and how to, really productively engage, to see what they can accomplish and, maybe intervene a little without, of course, creating any additional potential security issues. So very excited about that opportunity to really make a difference, because unfortunately transit is a mode that's used by traffickers frequently. And I believe that concludes my portion of the presentation. I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Carrillo.
Good morning, everyone. I'll be presenting the security program, an overview. Very proud. We are finally fully staffed across all boards here. Currently, we have 17 employees within NCTD security team. This includes the 9 control center technicians, as well as the 6 code compliance inspectors who have all passed their PCA 32 certification course as of 2 weeks ago. So I've got 6 fully staffed code compliance inspectors, as well as the administrative staff, which includes myself, the director of security, as well as my security manager, Mark Webb. Our contract with San Diego County Sheriff's, TSU, they are fully staffed with a new sergeant, Sergeant Burke, who was recognized during our board meeting last week. He was with the team previously as a deputy, promoted out as a sergeant, and is now back to run the team. So we're super excited to have him back. I know he's ready to get, some programs and get some details running with this team, although they've been doing a great job with Corporal Abraham and Corporal Ackerman kind of holding down the fort since Sergeant King was set to retire. He had some issues with regards to retirement, but we wish him well. Hoping to recognize him somewhere in the future for his service. So, and then we are about a year and a half in with our contract with Intercon Security, which started in a year and a half ago. They are staffed at Oceanside and Escondido 24/7, 7 days a week. We put them there because those were the 2 largest stations where we saw the most issues. It's kind of a bookend for the Sprinter, but it also allows us to monitor Metrolink and Amtrak as they're coming through Oceanside as well. They provide that security. I have 3 shifts, a day shift, swing shift, and an overnight graveyard shift. 2 officers monitoring those stations, like I said, 24 hours. They also help us with Padre game trains. Unfortunately, the Padres didn't make it to the playoffs. But nonetheless, they do help us out with staffing those trains as well as special events such as the Holiday Express, and obviously these board meetings that we have throughout the year. And then one of the things that we have hit the ground running, when I first started in 2020, there really was not a whole lot of reach out from agencies, first responders with regards to familiarization exercises just due to staffing. Something happened within the last year. I am getting inundated almost on a weekly basis, but we've done exercises for familiarization with every single agency up here, including San Diego PD and San Diego Fire, which hasn't happened in quite some time. So we've got the new buses, and so a lot of the agencies in North County are really reaching out, wanting to take a look at our new buses and understand in the event they have to respond, how to take care of those situations. So. Monitoring center activities, as I said before, we have 9 control center technicians. They are staffed 24/7, 365 days a year. Their primary duties really is monitoring the cameras, incident reporting and documentation, being that first responder and notifying first responder and key stakeholders when we have incidences that are happening throughout the system. They also assist, primarily this falls mainly on Mark now, because I'm really wanting to allow my control center technicians to be fully vetted and proactive without having to be bogged down with video reviews. So my security manager, Mark Webb, does primarily all of the investigations and follow-ups with the cameras. Again, my biggest thing is really having our staff vigilant and watching our cameras 24/7 and not being bogged down with reviewing a whole lot of videos, although they do from time to time get assigned those assignments. And of course, anything that comes through the security department gets documented in our data vector solutions, tracking software. And this is where I come in and basically look at the data that's being presented day in and day out and figure out where our resources need to be focused on. And then again, they support law enforcement. From time to time, we've had to speak with several of the agencies who would come in and basically commandeer my CCTs and explaining to them, unless the incident's happening right then and there, we prefer them to really forward that information to Mark and I so my team can stay proactive as much as possible. The good news is CCTV CIP project, it's just started this month. We're super excited about this contractor coming out and adding 29 new cameras throughout the system in areas that we innately have seen blind spots and issues. Escondido is a perfect example. It's an older station, and I felt like there were opportunities for us to put cameras in places that we just never had them before, and these are high-end cameras that give us great views of what's happening. Some of our older cameras are difficult, even though they are showing us there's an incident, it doesn't always give us the greatest details. So I'm super excited about that. In addition, we're also replacing 50 of the older cameras throughout the system, a lot of those being in the parking lots that innately don't give us a great view. So. Code compliance program, as I mentioned before, we have 6 full vetted public officers, and they're responsible for ordinance compliance throughout the system. They earn their money. I have 2 that are in the morning. They start at 4 a.m. in the morning till 12, and then I have another team of 2 that starts in the at noon and goes to 8 p.m. We had to do a change in schedule, which was great for me because we had some cutbacks, and so one of the responsibility was for my CCIs to do the opening of the restrooms, which we come to found out because they were being opened way too early. Unhoused folks were really occupying these spaces and staying and causing issues for our general ridership. So we kind of own that now, and we've been able to have folks move along or find other places to hang out instead of our stations overnight. And then during the evening hours, before the CCIs would usually end at 3, we now have them to 8 p.m. And this also allows for issues that we were seeing that were getting reported after we went home. And a lot of that is on the bus side. Really unhoused folks occupying bus stops or bus stations that we just don't have cameras on, as an example, the Plaza Camino Real and Town Center North. So they are hitting those particular locations daily, which we have never seen in quite some time. Like I said before, we are trying to get working with the deputies as well to do more fare checks, inspections, and validations, both on the Sprinter side and on the coaster side. And that's one of the things Sergeant Burke and I have sat down and really wanting to start some details where we can conjunctionally working with Intercon, the CCIs, and the deputies to really address some of our fare evasion, predominantly on the coaster and the Sprinter side. That's it on that. As far as the sheriff's deputy, the MOU was effective at 22 and it'll expire in 27. These folks earn their money as well. They're worth every penny that we pay them, and then some. They provide a general response throughout the entire system, properties and facilities and our modes. They are the lead agency for our rail incidents, response investigations. They conduct roving patrols, like I said, because the CCIs and Intercon Security have been able to provide our quality of life issue enforcement. It allows the deputies to do some heavy lifting, predominantly on the right-of-way with our homeless encampments, which is in conjunction with our trespassing, which I'll talk about a little bit further. They will, from time to time, depending on where their locations, will respond to disruptive passengers on buses and trains. They are being very proactive with regards to addressing fare evasion, both at Oceanside and Escondido and along the corridor. From time to time, at Melrose specifically, will they be able to get on a train, conduct those inspections, find people who don't have fare, pull them off. It leads to a lot of arrests, particularly warrants and whatnot. And then, of course, they do present some during special events, the Padre games. We always get great compliance when they're on the train. You know, when these Intercon officers are trying to explain to people we don't allow alcohol, and they kind of get brushed off, and then there follows up with a big, huge deputy to kind of take the note that we don't allow alcohol. So it's great to see them on our trains. They also conduct special details patrol assignments. They work in conjunction with the maintenance of way as well as my CCIs to address homeless encampments. Early when I started in 2020, homeless encampments obviously were very prevalent. Average one encampment could take up to 2 weeks, sometimes 3 weeks to clean up, get people to move out. We're now down to 72 hours. And it's making it very difficult for some of our unhoused people. They're really realizing, well, what's the point of setting up if I'm just going to get all my stuff taken away and moved? It also presents some great partnerships down with MTS. We've met with them and their homeless outreach team as well. And come to find out, we realized we were just doing kind of like the whack-a-mole. We would move them off our property. They'd move over to Metro MTS's side, and then they'd kick them out. They'd go to the Caltrans side. So we have a quarterly meeting with Caltrans and MTS to ensure that from the San Diego subdivision, specifically down in the San Diego area, that we're working together and not against each other. And I'm just going to provide some data from year over year. This is fiscal year. Unlike the safety, it's calendar year. Law enforcement and contact activity has decreased year over year, 23%. And it's not that law enforcement isn't out there doing their job. What's come to fruition, as an example, in one of our quarterly meetings with the SDSO was Prop 36, and realizing people who are being arrested for narcotics charges, that they have an option. They have an option to either go to jail and go to jail for a lot longer, or they can get treatment. It's their option. And so people are realizing if they're not taking the treatment option, they're going to be spending quite a few days, if not weeks, in jail. And this has helped with, the contacts that they're making on a day-to-day basis. Unloitering, it's a bit of a roller coaster, has always been a little bit of a coaster. And just for definition purposes, someone that we contact and we identify as loitering is somebody who's clearly not riding our modes. It could be someone who just got off a train or bus and is just going to hang out in our stations and really with no intentions. What we realized when Karen was at the helm early on, specifically in Oceanside, we had that driveway where we call it the wall. And a lot of our unhoused and people who were up to no good criminal activity were using that wall as a means to really have criminal activity. They would use our restrooms to do narcotics and whatnot. And so we worked diligently with the city of Oceanside and to address this particular incident. And what we realized is it was about 3 or 4 people who were the main culprits, who were bringing all of these people to our stations and committing crimes. So the deputies, in conjunction with the city of Oceanside and their contract security, worked really hard to get these people to move along. And they're here to ride a bus or a train. If not, you got to keep moving. You're not going to be able to sit for hours on end and having people come to you to do all kinds of criminal activity. So it's worked quite well. And if you see in February of 25, there's that peak, and that was due to 2 people individually who came back to the station who had been incarcerated for several months. And you saw that peak because it started to bring people back to the station. The deputies made contact with these 2 individuals and basically told them, if you're going to be hanging out at our stations and creating criminal activity, they will do everything they can to make sure that you're held accountable. So the good news is we've gone down this fiscal year. We are averaging about 200 a month of loiters documented through our system. That's it for me. Any questions?
Thank you both, Karen and Chris, for the presentation. Do we have any public comments, Taylor?
No, we do not.
Okay. Are there any questions or comments from our committee members?
Appreciate the vigilance on both reports and obviously the staff working hard. Quick question, and this is more for my own edification. Under the management analysis and the audits report, where we include incident reports, maybe I'm going the wrong way. I know, just as an example, in Encinitas, we deal with cycling comes up a lot. Cycling, motorist cycling accidents, and it's kind of come to light that our reports only reflect incidents where either the sheriff's department or the fire department were called, and not other incidences where they drove themselves to the ER, things like that. Is there and I was just, again, for edification, I think this is a great report. Is there a parameters around that or criteria that for those incidents that we report or collect?
So we collect and track for ourselves any incidents on our system, whether an individual gets transported for medical or not. Anytime there is any contact with an individual, whether it's, a bus and maybe a mirror gets clipped or something, we track all of those incidences. So everything gets reported in through our dispatch centers and then tracked in through our safety. As far as reporting up to like the NTD, they have thresholds that are kind of more major accidents, medical, those types of things. But we track any incident that we are aware of on our system, and we can, group them through our reporting, with the different parameters. But it doesn't just apply if there was medical or if the person was taken away or if the police came or anything like that. It's any incident that we're aware of. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it's really helpful. Just kind of wrapping my head around what we're actually looking at in the scope of it. And I'm just curious on we talked about vehicles, and I'm going specific to vehicles. We have an intersection in our city where I get there and I know that 3 vehicles fit on in this case, it's the east side of the road before the next intersection. is there a way to kind of create a methodology where we inform the public, like, hey, if there's 3 vehicles there, you're not going to fit, for lack of a better way to put it. Is there a way to do that, or is that just, I know
I
vehicles
mean,
different lengths and.
I'll let Sean or Lori answer after me, but I guess I would say probably not, because, it's one thing if the 3 vehicles are teeny tiny little cars versus, a semi-truck. So I think that probably puts a little bit more risk upon the districts and the cities if we try to put that level of specificity. But I would defer to Sean and Lori for probably a more better answer.
I can answer both of your questions with a little bit more information. So as it relates to cycling, we had a very serious incident that happened a few years back where there was a cycling accident on Camp Pendleton. I don't know if you're aware of that one. And what resulted from that was a settlement agreement where NCTD agreed to participate in some cycling initiatives with some local community organizations. And so we're part of those organizations. And I think now that it was really MV at that time that was part of the organizations. And now that we've taken bus in-house, we're starting to ramp up our NCTD participation in those organizations. So as leading the safety team, now the bus is in-house, that's something that we're looking at to try to get awareness out there in the bus community, or excuse me, in the biking community. So that's one thing. In terms of the statistics with, cycling versus bus, for example, I think that's something we certainly do track it, and I think it's something that we could perhaps have a little bit more transparency with the board, and I think it could be helpful in the safety statistics so that people know this is a thing. Like, you need to be super careful when you're biking around buses because the visibility is, very limited sometimes, with a bus versus bike. So I think that's something that we can definitely work on. On the other issue, as it relates to some of these grade crossings and how can we improve signage and things like that, I was thinking of one example. This is at college, for example, and then also at it's at the 5 freeway at Oceanside Boulevard. There's these little pockets, it's like there's the parking lot there. We're right at the 5 freeway at Oceanside Boulevard. There's a Starbucks there and a McDonald's. And there's, the little pocket between the tracks. And there's signage there that shows, you shouldn't be there at all in that pocket. Like, you should stay back. But I see people all the time, like trying to get, pushing up to get so that they can make that right-hand turn, and then they, get stuck in there. I don't know if there's other signage that, is used in the industry. I know we have the industry standard signage there, but certainly something that we can look at to see if there's anything additional that we can do. But like Karen said, the more specificity that you create, the more liability that you perhaps create on the district. So we have to be mindful of that as well.
Sure, yeah, and I credit my wife on this one. The other idea we had was kind of like we use RFBs for crosswalks, and when you back in your garage, if you have an automatic door, when it hits a certain sensor, your door stops. Similarly, having an RFB where, hey, when there's only 8 feet left, this RFB goes off. And so on the other side of the track, like, hey, if this light's going, like, you're not going to fit. I don't know if anybody's explored that, but just curious. Like I said, those were questions for edification. It was a great report, and I really appreciate it.
Just briefly, for the Sprinter car strikes, I'm really curious which intersections they are, and also historically, if we could get maybe the last 10 years of strikes, just so we can know college you bring up, and that immediately makes me think it's probably the number one, but I'm curious if that's actually borne out by the data.
College is one of the intersections that has more incidents overall, whether it's near misses or vehicle strikes. The other intersection that kind of jumps out And we happily look back over a period and provide more detail, but just looking at this past year is the one on Santa Fe, where Woodland crosses, and I think folks in Vista may know it. It's kind of a five-way star intersection, and it's got kind of a confusing left turn lane. It's just, I feel bad for folks. It's just not the greatest intersection. So we are working with Vista to try to improve some of the signage and the markings in those areas, because particularly folks who are trying to get to that left turn lane on Santa Fe, you butt right up against the track, and this individual just didn't realize it and went past the gate, and then at that point, there they were by the tracks, and the gate behind was down. So it was not a great spot. But we'll be happy to pull the data and provide some additional detail on intersections. Those two jump out at me for this year.
I think I would just state that we're making an assumption that they didn't realize it as counsel for NCTD.
Yeah, I would say too, we've had an interesting year as it relates to people driving down the track. And one that we had this year that was crazy odd was down off of Cleveland. They just made a right turn onto the track and pulled literally up to the Metrolink station and dropped somebody off at the platform and then got stuck.
Wow.
Yeah, I think we've had, what, 4 or 5 of those this year? There was one in San Marcos, a couple in Oceanside, and it's been a fun year, Escondido, been a fun year with people just turning onto the tracks.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I would just add on the college one, we are building 200 homes right there at that intersection too. So I think that's probably something that we need to focus on figuring out. Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. I just had a couple questions that I think you answered. So all of the near misses, you know exactly where those are. You track them, you see trends or where the,
Correct.
okay. And then on the strikes, which is probably the, most awful, you investigate what those issues were that led to that strike, whether it was fatal or not, correct? Okay.
Yes.
And then just a question, mostly clarifying question on the closed circuit TV. So are those being monitored live and then they can be responded to live?
Yes.
Okay, 24/7.
24/7.
Boy,
No, I mean, it's five, by the time this program is done, we're talking about 550 cameras. I'd have to have 550 people to watch every single camera, but ideally, we do our best to monitor, and depending on the reports that are coming through, we'll jump on that camera real quick and see what's going on, and then dispatch accordingly.
that's impressive, that's good. Sure.
Is our data being housed in California? Do we contract with a company in California to keep our data, or is it in-house? I mean, I don't know if we have that.
Our data is tracked on Vector Solutions database, and that is actually housed on our servers, I believe.
Yeah,
Oh, the video,
Yeah,
sorry.
where-
Yeah, no,
where's
the video's on our servers.
Yeah.
thank you.
Do you compare how we do to other jurisdictions? I think that would probably be a challenge, but is there any way to compare that?
Compare.
We do. It's not always an apples to apples comparison. Things that we typically try to sort of compare are, we have a reporting responsibility to NTD anytime we have our National Transportation Database. And we have certain things that pop up like a fatality or what we deem a critical accident, assaults on employees. So what we try to do is aside from the generalized categorization, we pull that data off to the side and we talk to other transit agencies about, not always apples to apples, but tell me where your number one issues are kind of coming up. Is it signalization? Is it relationships with the cities on how the intersections are set up? And so we get a little bit of that 50,000-foot data, but it does help us sort of look at trends that are happening. And if someone else is having that same issue, I think it's scale in some cases. Like when we try to benchmark our data against LA Metro, it just doesn't correlate. But like if we benchmark our data against some of the stuff that MTS is experiencing on trolley, especially outside of the downtown area, it does correlate. And so I think there are a lot of comparatives there. And so while the comparison isn't direct, what it really does is sort of guide us on what things we need to focus on for the year ahead.
Thank you both. That was a great presentation. Much appreciated. Okay, our second item on the agenda, we'll do next. This is an update on the NCTD and microtransit service since implementation. Mary Dover, Chief of Staff, will present this item. Mary, you have our attention.
Good morning, committee members. The full board of directors receives a monthly update on the ridership performance and some other operational statistics on the NCTD Plus program, but we thought it would be good to bring this committee a more in-depth overview of how the NCTD Plus microtransit program has been performing in San Marcos and Vista. So as you're aware, NCTD launched the NCTD Plus microtransit on-demand shared ride service in San Marcos last June. It was very successful, and so we launched a Vista Zone this year in May. Riders can reserve NCTD Plus rides on demand either through our mobile app or by calling the reservation call center, and this is for same-day trips only. It's intended to be a very on-demand, flexible service. The service hours for both the San Marcos and Vista Zone are 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. on weekdays and then 8 to 8 on weekends. When NCTD initially launched the NCTD Plus service in San Marcos, we had a $5 fare for anywhere within the zone, any point to point. If you were connecting to or from a Sprinter station, or if you had an additional rider on your booking, you got a 50% discount, which was $250 at the time. We determined through the first few months of the NCTD Plus service that was a little high, so we lowered the anywhere in the zone fare to $3 and then maintained the half off and lowered the to from a Sprinter station fare as well as the additional rider fare to $150. We also wanted to make sure that the service was consistent with the Youth Opportunity Pass, and so we provided free fares for youth 18 and under. So NCTD Plus operates within a defined zone in San Marcos and Vista. In the San Marcos zone, it's the main core of the city of San Marcos, and in Vista, it's the downtown area and some surrounding communities. NCTD has always maintained an iterative process with the NCTD Plus microtransit zones themselves. Initially, when we launched San Marcos in June 2024, it was this zone here. It had the main core of the city as well as 3 Sprinter stations. Through some public feedback, which we've maintained throughout the implementation of the service, we determined that there were a few ridership drivers that weren't captured in the zone: the Costco and Walmart on Nordall, the Target on San Marcos Boulevard right as it becomes Palomar Airport, and then some housing and parks. So in September 2024, we expanded the zone to include those. Again, through more community feedback, we realized that the North County Food Bank was just outside the zone. So then in February of this year, we expanded it just a little bit to the west to include the North County Food Bank. So throughout the San Marcos pilot, and we're doing so with Vista as well, we're making sure that we maintain that community connection to receive feedback about the zones and make minor modifications where we're able. For NCTD Plus ridership, since it started in San Marcos, it's been an incredibly successful service. Since it launched in June of last year, we have over 25,000 boardings, and the majority of those are through the app, 98%. We also see a lot of repeat riders, which is a great sign. People are having a good experience on the service, and so they're coming back. The average number of requests per rider is 25 since it started. And then just to give you more of a recent picture, the first 6 months of this year, January to June 2025, on average, we saw a little over 2,000 boardings per month. A good amount of those, just over half, 54%, were pooled, which is great. We always want to encourage multiple people to take the service. That's how we can maintain efficiency. We also are doing a pretty good job with the service. Our average review is at 94% in the San Marcos zone. We've also seen great ridership growth since its inception. In August 2024, we had 460 boardings, and this past August, we had just shy of 2,000, which is a little over a 300% growth in ridership. This provides a comparison between the San Marcos and the Vista Zone. Vista Zone has only been up for a little over 5 months. As you'll see, June and July, we had strong ridership in San Marcos, and as the Vista Zone has continued, more people are hearing about it and being able to utilize the service, we see the Vista Zone slowly surpassing the San Marcos Zone. A few ridership generators in the San Marcos zone. The Sprinter at Palomar College is a huge ridership driver. We see a lot of people going to and from the college with this service. There's also a collection of businesses on the corner of Rancho Santa Fe and San Marcos Boulevard, including the CVS and the Aldi. That's a big ridership driver as well as the Boys and Girls Club, the Walmart off Nordal, and then Cal State San Marcos. In Vista, we see a similar picture. The Sprinter Vista Transit Center is a huge ridership driver for this service. People are connecting within the zone to the Sprinter, and they're also coming to Vista on the Sprinter and then connecting further into the city. Similarly, we have a lot of grocery stores that are high ridership drivers, Stater Brothers and Northgate, as well as the Vista Community Clinic, and then some schools as well. NCTD Plus works best when it's a complement to our fixed route services. So this map just provides an overview of how NCTD Plus interacts with our fixed route, whether it be Breeze or the Sprinter within the city. For some folks that maybe are too far of a walk to a Breeze route or the Sprinter, they can hop on NCTD Plus and make their connection. Similarly, in Vista, we did see, the board will remember that NCTD Plus we viewed was duplicative for one of the Breeze routes, but for the other Breeze routes that are going further distances and exit the city, NCTD Plus provides a great connection to those Breeze routes for folks that maybe are taking a longer journey outside of the city. Throughout the operation of the San Marcos service and in this first few months of the Vista service, we want to make sure that we're measuring the success and the efficiency of NCTD Plus. One of the ways that we do that is by looking at ridership of NCTD Plus in comparison to our other modes, how they're interacting, and which use cases they might be best suited to. Through that, we're also looking at how we can improve mobility and access for as many people as we can. What's the right solution for them? Is it a Breeze route? Is it NCTD Plus? And we're using the data from NCTD Plus to inform some of those decisions. We also want to make sure that the quality of service for NCTD Plus is maintained. If you request a ride, we want to make sure that it's there and able to provide it for you. And we're also making sure that the wait times aren't too long. The service doesn't really work if people are waiting more than 30 minutes for their ride. Efficiency also is a major driver, those pooled trips and the shared rate. If we have 3 or more, like you see in the picture, that's a really good use of our resources. We're really trying to minimize the amount of one ride trips on NCTD Plus. And then we're also looking at the financial performance, making sure that we're as efficient as possible with the operations costs, and that factors into some of the decisions with how we operate the service. NCTD Plus provides a lot of benefits, and it's definitely a key piece of NCTD's service network, but there are some challenges. Cost efficiency is one. It's because it's an on-demand service and it's intended to be nimble. An NCTD Plus trip costs about 2 times what a Breeze trip costs. Service quality also is something that I mentioned we want to make sure we're maintaining. In order to keep the wait times down and to make sure that riders have a good experience on the zone, we're hamstrung in how much we can expand it. So although we would love to serve every single community in San Marcos and Vista, we have to make sure that the zone is geared in a way that won't increase those wait times significantly.
On the cost efficiency, you're talking about the cost to us, right? Not the
Yes.
cost to the rider?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you for clarifying. Yeah. So the future of NCTD Plus, we have seen great support from the cities of San Marcos and Vista. The riders seem to love it. It seems to be a very integral part of our network. In order to make sure that we're continuing to operate the service in the best way possible, we're maintaining those connections, as I mentioned, with city staff, community members. That'll help inform our service planning for the existing zones and any future zones that we have and any improvements we might be able to make with the service. We're also leveraging data insights. If we see in the Vista zone, for example, that 90% of people are going from point A to point B, we can look at that data and see, does it make sense for a fixed route in this area? It's a really effective tool at gathering data. Last year, the board was provided with an overview of 12 zones that we analyzed for NCTD Plus service, and they were ranked based off of points of interest, equity metrics, and things like that. So in Tier 1, were San Marcos Vista and then Fallbrook, Paula, and the Oceanside Eastern Core around the Crouch Station, and just east of the 5 freeway around Oceanside Boulevard. NCTD does have plans to launch those pending additional funding. We're looking at a variety of funding strategies to make sure that we can continue to operate this service that's very well liked in the community. We've started conversations with the city of San Marcos to see if there's an opportunity to partner there. NCTD Plus in San Marcos and Vista are funded in FY26, but in FY27 is when we start to see a challenge. So we're looking at Sandag's Flexible Fleets Grant Program to potentially launch Fallbrook, Paula, and or the Oceanside Core, and then we're looking at any partnerships that we can have to maintain those San Marcos and Vista zones, but it will be a challenge come FY27. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Mary, for the presentation. Taylor, do we have any public comment on this item?
No, we do not.
Okay, thank you. All right, so comments, questions from the council?
Another great presentation. I'm a huge fan of microtransit. Just to start off, we have microtransit studies going on with a number of our cities outside of San Marcos and Vista. Where are we at with those, and how many cities outside of Vista and obviously San Marcos are we doing that with right now?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, we did rank them, and I can, for any board members that weren't here last year when they received the microtransit suitability analysis, I can certainly send that your way. Next up in the queue is the Fallbrook zone. So it kind of captures the downtown area of Fallbrook, but then it also extends out to Paula as well. Those are were ranked very high because it's not a suitable environment for fixed route transit. It's very far from our yards. It's definitely a better solution for microtransit. So that is next in the queue, and then that eastern core of Oceanside. So, you know, if you think of Oceanside Boulevard where it meets the 5 freeway in that general area, those are pending of additional funding. We do plan to seek funding for those, but we don't have the resources right now to launch them.
And then you touched on combos very quickly in that. And I feel like as a board, we always talk about NCTD Plus, Breeze, the train. We don't talk combo very often. And it seems like that is kind of a key to this. And so I wasn't sure if we were focusing on that and what our direction was with that. And obviously, we're constantly trying to put the jigsaw puzzle together with those pieces. But is that kind of, how are we communicating that to our public?
Yeah, so we have it in a variety of ways. One way that we try to incentivize combining NCTD Plus with some of our fixed route is by a discount in fare if you're connecting to a Sprinter station. One of the reasons why microtransit is a feasible service is because it closes that first last mile gap. So a lot of the reason why people might not be able to take a train or a bus is that it doesn't get them exactly where they need to go. So this is kind of when we talk about NCTD Plus, we talk about the connection with our fixed route services. Similarly, just because you mentioned rail and bus, sometimes when we do a particular campaign about, you know, go to Front Wave or go to the Padres, we can talk about how multiple of our services interact with each other. Take the Sprinter and then hop on the bus and it'll get you to Front Wave. So we talk about our service network as a whole instead of just focusing on one mode.
So I downloaded NCTD Plus. I read the report. I didn't get to deep dive as much as I wanted to in this, so I apologize for some of these questions. But using the app, it wasn't clear to me if I saw that I could plan my trip. And I know that Uber wants to catch up with us in their pursuit of this microtransit aspect, rideshare. But are we able to real time look at it and plan our trip as far as not what's the closest transportation? Obviously, people are using the Breeze to do this and the centers. Are we able to look at it and say, okay, if I look in this map, the next 3 buses are coming in this area. In the moment, where is the NCD Plus platform that's closest to me, so I can put all that together?
Yeah, so if you were in one of the zones, it would be a little bit more workable. So next time you're in San Marcos, pull it up and it'll show you the zone. You can type in your origin and destination and it'll tell you if it's within the zone. We do Unfortunately, one of the challenges is our Pronto fare system is not integrated with NCTD Plus. It is a separate platform. Our customer service assistants are very good at planning your whole trip. If somebody calls in or if they're on our website, it'll actually be able to, I'm in Encinitas and I need to get to San Marcos. It'll tell you, okay, take the 304 probably would be best. Take the 304 up to San Marcos and then get on NCTD Plus. So we do have, right now they are separate apps. I think we're working on how we might be able to mesh them, but it is a challenge because they're separate platforms.
Yeah, we utilize Spare for the NCTD Plus, which is common in microtransit. They've not been able to sort of bridge the gap between our GTFS real-time data from the GPS that we put into, this is public information, so anybody can pull that information and make their own apps. They do all the time. The one that we typically partner with is one called Transit. That's pretty well known throughout the industry. They pull every transit agency's GTFS data. And so typically what someone would have to do is know the schedule at the station from the transit app and then build their trip for NCTD Plus accordingly to get to that network. The other app does from front to back tell you exactly what buses you need to connect to for a trip planning and maps it out by each mode you need to take. We're trying to integrate that into the NCTD Plus piece, but because it's sort of a proprietary software, it's been a little bit difficult for us to integrate that in there.
That helps. Yeah, I've just, because in my head I had this, one of the challenges in this space seems to be your planned versus your spontaneous use of it, right? And we want to have all users, not just people who have the time to plan. And I mean, that's really what Uber, I don't know if I'm allowed to say that. That's what Uber does really well in cities is I open up my Uber and okay, right away I can call it and here it comes and off we go. And it's spontaneous. So within that, have we played around with the concept of, before we try other zones, just this concept of flooding a zone? In other words, our best advertising is the van, right? Driving around, picking people up and dropping it off. And have we tried saying, okay, instead of taking our resources and going to Encinitas and putting a bunch of NCTD Plus vehicles out, let's see if we can increase it by going to this Vista zone that we've got created. And instead of putting 2 vans down in Encinitas, let's put both of those vans in there. And now we've doubled, we have, I don't know what the numbers are, but we have 4 vans versus 2. And all of a sudden we are a presence in that zone. People see us. Obviously, I know it's a balance of demand for that, but the idea is to try to divide, obviously use that for a time to increase the demand by presence.
Yeah, one of the things I mentioned Sandag's Flexible Fleets Grant Program. We had gone back and forth with Sandag about whether we could seek funds from that program for existing services, and that would have been one of the things that we were looking for. If we could have applied for funding for San Marcos and Vista, then we could have maybe even expanded the zone, added more vans and drivers to the zone to make it more efficient. As it stands now, existing projects are not eligible for the program, so we do see a need for Fallbrook. So at this time, we'll probably do the Fallbrook zone and then possibly depending on the amount of funding. But it is something that we're looking at pending additional funding.
And then I'll yield the floor in a second, but since I've got your ear, we've been talking a lot about, and I know NCTD has joined us at Encinitas at the school liaison meeting, school busing. And to me, this seems like one of the opportunities of this program is either to aggressively connect that last mile so we can make school busing a thing, or act as, in some cases in communities, an opportunity to be the school bus. Is that something we've explored?
Yeah, so we actually, we had a lot of requests, particularly out of Encinitas. We were working with Assemblymember Berner on what a microtransit for schools would look like. We've actually found through the NCTD Plus, particularly in San Marcos, the college environment is very good for NCTD Plus because it's not a fixed start and end time. When we have a fixed start and end time, fixed route really does provide a better solution because it can carry that many more people. A bus can carry 60 or more. I'm probably messing up that number, but whereas an NCTD Plus van can only carry 12. So that's only 12 students that we can get right before the bell. Or 24 if we have 2 vehicles out, but we do our school tripper routes and some of the Breeze fixed routes that do serve the schools see incredibly high ridership at the school bell times. So at this point, we see Breeze routes as the best solution for providing school trips, but we certainly do see some folks utilize NCTD Plus for getting to and from school.
Yeah, in San Marcos, actually, in the morning, we have a little bit of a conflict over the students between Palomar, CSUSM, and San Marcos High School. So I have quite a few bookings overnight for San Marcos High School students and occasionally they've been pretty close to the bell because we're kind of running around between Palomar and Cal State. So it's a good problem to have, I think. I think to Mary's earlier point, that does make it a little difficult at times where we put 2 vans over there and we get a lot of rides for an hour and then we don't have a ride for a couple hours. But I think they do a really good job of managing it. We really haven't had too many issues with customers calling in and being upset about that. And it really is a good problem to have. So we'll see how that kind of goes. San Marcos is kind of interesting because there's a lot of schools right in a real super tight area. And so it's interesting to see kind of how those mornings go. And I ride to Sprinter Station a lot on NCTD Plus, and I'm usually in there with some kids going to the college or some folks going to high school. So it's kind of nice to chat them up and see what they got going on.
Thank you. You have the floor. I've asked a lot of questions and.
So can you talk a little bit about, there was a lot of great information in there and it's super interesting. I have 1,000 questions. I will attempt not to ask them all. So you talked about expanding zones and the drop in efficiency. That seemed like an interesting, so are you keeping the expanded zone then in San Marcos, I think is where you just expanded it to include like those neighborhoods? Because you think like the additional time it takes to get out there is now, some other rider down here is not getting an efficient ride. So how are you managing that?
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime we get a request or a flood of public feedback to expand the zone, we do have to look at how that would impact wait times. The expanded zone that we have now is manageable. We're keeping it under that 30-minute kind of benchmark for wait times and rides. But yes, it is a challenge. How we could fix that is by adding additional drivers and vans to the zone to make sure that there's more supply for the demand that we're getting. But that's additional resources that we don't have the funding for at this moment.
Yeah, kind of the piece that we're working on that is we work off of 2 different systems for paratransit and for microtransit. And when we report that data to the National Transit Database, they're listed as 2 different things. They're not in the same category. So what we really like to get to at some point is a system that we can use internally where if we have an NCTD Plus overload in a certain area at a certain time, we can divert paratransit operators over who are waiting for another ride to go over, pick somebody up and slide them over. Managing that in the back office is insane right now. When we're able to, when we get a new software system, when we're able to kind of manage the 2 together and what mode are they operating as paratransit, are they operating as NCTD Plus, it'll be a lot easier for us to do that. Because right now they're sort of branded differently. And I think that decision was made before I got here, but historically for me, what I've just said is like demand response is demand response. We either operate as a paratransit vehicle or we operate as a demand response, like a microtransit, whatever we need and wherever that person is in real time so we can kind of speed up the process. And I think to your point, that'll help us out. If we expand the area and we've got more people that are floating around that can do these 1 or 2 trips while we get heavy and then kind of break out of there and do paratransit trips for us. Now, the paratransit group's pretty busy. They're averaging about 2.5 trips an hour, which is way above the national average. And the national average is right around 1.9, 2 trips an hour. So our folks are doing good there. But I think it's just about utilizing that work. I'll say for San Marcos, we've been asked to expand the zone to San Alejo Hills and a few other places, and we can't because we just don't have once you start getting that far out into the neighborhoods, it really has a 5-10 minute impact on some of the trips that are inside the grid. And so, hopefully we can do that one day when we get a new system, we can manage it a little differently. But right now, that's a difficult choice that we have to make sometimes.
Okay. So do we know about our NCTD Plus riders? Are they new riders to our system typically, or are they typically ones that have been in our systems before? Do we know that yet?
Yeah, we have some anecdotal evidence. As I mentioned, the Pronto system and the NCTD Plus system are separate. So right now, we're not collecting Pronto data in the NCTD Plus app. which would be how we would cross-check if they're an existing rider. But we do have some anecdotal evidence that it's both. We are getting a lot of new riders in the city of San Marcos that had never taken transit before, and so it's broadening their view of the services that we can provide. And then it's also existing riders that take the Sprinter that are now utilizing NCDD Plus to go farther.
And have we seen drops in the Breeze routes that are being heavily used now in NCTD Plus? Like aligned routes, are we seeing numbers that go down? Like that would be very interesting to me if we looked at the Breeze numbers at the same time that San Marcos has been ramping up. What does the ridership look like at that same time for those same similar routes?
Yeah, we do still see strong Breeze ridership, and Breeze ridership is still significantly higher in the city of San Marcos than NCTD Plus. So we haven't seen a noticeable decrease in any Breeze ridership. You know, we're not seeing evidence that people are taking away from Breeze and using NCTD Plus instead.
Okay. Yeah, it does seem like the data that we're getting from this really is another driver of like where we could put rapid bus transit in. So, yeah, thank you. That was very interesting.
Thank you, Mary. I love this program. I think it's really key for people to start using transportation, public transportation. So there's been good growth in San Marcos that you've documented. What do you attribute that to?
I think, number one, in the very infancy of the San Marcos zone, it was the first of its kind, and so it did take a little bit of time for us to teach the community how to use it, get them familiar with the service, and so just natural ridership growth that way. But as we've seen with the good reviews that we've gotten, the repeat riders, I think that the community does see it as a positive experience, and so they're coming back to it. We do see higher peaks throughout the school year for the colleges in particular. We do see a little bit of a dip in San Marcos in the summer months, July, August, even a little bit of September. So we do see college students, there's some word of mouth. We poured a decent amount of advertising dollars into San Marcos and Vista. So we are able to reach a lot of folks that way. So I think it's a mesh of a lot of things that are driving the ridership growth.
Yeah, the fair was a part of that too. When I first came on board, the planning team came to me and said, hey, we're charging this like a premium service. And what do you think about that? I think they were curious to know what my thought was on that. And I said, that's not okay, because if we're really trying to use that service to connect people either within the city or to another mode that will leave the city, charging $5 to get to a line that costs, $3 is not okay. And so we really had to go back and just kind of slash it in half. I mean, we went to from $5 to $3, and then we went to $1.50, and then from $2.50 to $1.50 on the additional. And it was almost overnight when we dropped the fares, the ridership almost doubled in the next month. And so, the thought process for me at least was, what are we really trying to gauge this service? Are we trying to gauge it off its profitability, or are we trying to gauge it off of the ridership? And we built this for ridership. We didn't build it to make tons of money through premium service. And what we found is we were making more money at the lower rate because we were doubling or tripling our ridership. And it provided, I think, especially in San Marcos, where we had Palomar and CSUSM and some of these collegiate institutions that didn't have a contract with us, to put that on their student card. So they were paying out of pocket for that to get to the Sprinter line, to get to the other places. And so I think the fair was a contributor to that also. And I really appreciate the planning team coming to me and saying, hey, what's your thought? What do you think about this? We're not okay with where we're at, and I think we need to change it. And we were in a pilot stage, so it's easy for us in a pilot to just say, okay, fine, we're going to change it tomorrow. It's a done deal. We didn't have to go through any process, and that worked out well for us because we almost instantly saw some pretty interesting ridership. Now, we did mailers too in Vista and in San Marcos, so we sent mailers out to everybody and invited them to come to the website or the app or learn. And we made trips to council. And actually, a lot of the folks that were on our board in both of those cities helped us out quite a bit getting the message out. And so it was a good run of show.
Did you say you sent flyers to everyone in that jurisdiction?
Anybody that was in the zone.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah, anybody that was in the original zone, we sent flyers to at their houses. And And we went to council meetings quite a few times, went to a couple council meetings and really got the word out. And I give credit to the board too, like, Karina and when Sharon Jenkins was on the board, I mean, they were very supportive of these pilots, and they went out on their own and helped us drum up some of that information with our teams. We were at the San Marcos Farmers Market as well. We were at Vista, the markets there. I mean, wherever we can get in and kind of spread that information, we
Have you
try to.
ever tried free advertisement, like the papers there or local news or anything like that?
So we did. So we tailored our advertising. We use a lot of the same strategies for Vista and San Marcos, but we did tailor it a little bit based on the communities that we're intending to serve. In Vista, we had a flyer in the Get One Free booklet that everybody gets. In the postcard that we sent out, we did give a free ride for the first time. So we used a lot of the similar strategies in both zones.
So when you talked about, it sounds like you'd like to have in time of arrival less than 30 minutes or less. Do you know how you're doing on that goal?
Yes, it's in one of my, for the San Marcos zone, the mean wait time is around 21 minutes, and in Vista, it's around 17 minutes.
Great, that's great. And then lastly, do you collect any demographics so just for instance, age groups or employment, if they're going to employment or places like that?
Yeah, we do, definitely. All of the data, start point and end point is captured by the NCD Plus app. We do have some demographic data, especially if it's a youth rider, because that would trigger the free fare. I don't have it in front of me, but I can certainly get that to you.
Do you think most of the folks that are going to the Sprinter station are going to the Sprinter? Because I know because I was just thinking, like, if I was riding it to the other side transit center, it's like, I'm going downtown. Like, that's where I'm riding it to.
I would say in San Marcos, yes. In Vista, that's a great question. San Marcos is really not a lot around the Sprinter stations unless you're trying to go to the college, like if you're going to Palomar or something like that. Vista is kind of a different one because where those stations are is kind of prime time. It's a great question.
Yeah. Unfortunately, not a real way to track if they're actually getting on the Sprinter for its intended purpose of the free fare. Yeah.
We'll use those 584 cameras that Chris was talking about.
But yeah, Sean makes a great point. There's a lot around the Vista Transit Center that people could be connecting to. San Marcos, it's a different case. Thank you.